All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is command substitution. Now, I showed it to you before. We use like the backticks or the $sign in the parenthesis. We're going to expand on that, and I'm going to talk about some of the specifics with it, how to use it, and what to be aware of. So I guess first thing, let's clean up this directory a little bit. Let's go ahead and make a new directory. We can use make dir. There's another command. So just like you can cd into a directory, we can make a directory. Let's go ahead and make one called done. And this is where we will move everything that is done. So to do this, it's really simple. We can just say, let's move associative arrays, which is the name of the file, into done, and that will move the file into the done directory. Now, if we ls, you'll notice that associative arrays is no longer there. If we ls done, you can see it's in that folder, it's in that directory. That's awesome. Do we really have to go through one by one and move them one by one? Because we could move case, we could also move conditionals, and we can move file.txt, and we can move them all into done. Move takes multiple arguments, and it will move them all into the last argument. If there's more than 2 arguments, meaning you give it a lot of arguments, the last argument has to be a directory, but if it's a directory, it works just fine. Now when we ls done, look at that, we have a bunch of files in there. I'll clear the screen, take a look at what we have right here. If you're curious, I do have an alias for L, just because sometimes I mistype ls and hit enter, so that's why L works just like ls does. If we want to move the rest of the stuff here, here's a cool trick we can do. We can move star into done. Now the interesting thing here is that star will match everything. It will even match the directory done. So it will print an error. It'll yell at us saying we're trying to move done inside done, which doesn't make sense. You can't put a folder in itself. So we get an invalid argument there, but don't worry, it worked. Everything else has been moved there. We now have a done directory which has all this stuff, but we have a clean directory that we can just make new scripts in. So let's go ahead and make our first script here. Let's do basic command substitution. We'll call it that. And of course, user bin env bash. Let's go ahead and save that. chmod +x, give it the executable bit. We can run it, and it does nothing because it's an empty script. Now, so I'll go over some of the stuff we went over before, but as you know, I can set any variable here. I could say thing equals, and if I use a single quote, who am I? These are single quotes. These are apostrophes effectively. And then I echo thing is thing. What do you think is going to happen? If I run this, it just prints thing is who am I. It doesn't run the who am I command. Who am I is a command. But in Bash's point of view, because we use single quotes here, this is just a string. We have to change these to backticks. Notice how it changes colors now. Now we'll actually execute that like a command. So if I rerun this, we can see thing is Dave. Hey, that's cool. That's the output of the who am I command. Of course, we could change this. We could change this to uname, and now it should say thing is Darwin, because that's the output of the uname command on my system. Now that's great, but let me show you this is a somewhat contrived example, but I'm going to prove what I asserted before earlier in this video, where I talked about nesting them becoming problems. So let's trash all this, and let's just run the who am I command on its own line. If we run that, it will print Dave, because that's who I am. We could also echo who am I and close it there. So the echo command takes arguments and it will print them to the screen, and the argument bash gives it will be the output of the who am I command. So if this works, it should just print Dave twice. One is the easy way of printing it, and one is the hard way where we use echo and we use command substitution. Again, this is contrived. You really wouldn't write code like this. It's convenient because you could do something like hello, and then you could do this all in one line. So like this example is a little bit contrived. But yeah, let me show you why this becomes a problem. Because what if we wanted to nest it? What if we wanted echo to receive the echo command? And who am I is in here, and then we close those 2 backticks. Like, what's going to happen if we run this? Well, it prints who am I. It doesn't actually print Dave. So that's kind of weird. What's going on here? Well, this backtick is closing this backtick. We actually have 2 separate, I'll highlight them. We have 2 separate sections of backticks right here and right here. So echo is running the echo command, which gives it nothing. So there's nothing here, and then there's who am I, and there's nothing here. So all it prints is the literal who am I string. This is a little bit confusing, but if we wanted to nest it, we need to escape these backticks. And when you escape these backticks, now they're not closing this. This all is in one big giant backtick. That's great. So if we run this, what do we get? We get Dave, Dave, Dave. Hey, that's awesome. That's what we expect to get. That's really great. What if we want to do it again? Again, you really wouldn't write code like this, but I'm just showing this to illustrate the point. What if we wanted to echo this, and then echo this, and then who am I? And then we have to close that, and then we have to close that, and then we have to close these, and these weren't escaped. Is this going to work? Well, let's go ahead and see. Let me :WQ, run that. We get who am I again. Okay, so that didn't clearly work. We have to not only escape the backtick here, we have to escape the backslash. So, as you can see, That's hideous. Not to mention, we haven't quoted any of our variables here. So if these commands had like multiple spaces in them, they would be lost because we are not appropriately quoting them. So let's go ahead and let's rewrite this. So we'll call this backticks, and then we will say echo dollar parens notation. Not the best way of writing it, but here we go. When I execute this command, you will see that we have the backticks up here, and then we have the dollar parens notation down there. So let's go ahead and show what this would look like if we were to use that notation. We do this, and then we run the command we want, and then we close it. That's pretty simple. How do we nest it? Look at that. No escaping, no having to worry about it. This is proper. This works exactly as is. In fact, if I want to nest it one more level, I can just copy and paste this whole thing, put echo here, open it there, close it there, and look at that. Super easy. Now again, contrived example, you wouldn't really be doing this. I'm just showing you why this notation, I would prefer this notation. On top of that, you can also quote your expansions very easily. So I could put quotes there, I could put quotes here, put quotes at the beginning of the dollar sign and quotes at the end of the parenthesis, and it might look a little weird. Again, can't stress this enough. You're not going to write code like this because yeah, this looks super weird, but it should just work until I have a typo on the last one. Where did I put the typo in there? We echo. Oh, I forgot the open quotes here. I should have looked at the syntax highlighter to even help me out. So again, you're not writing code like either of these ways. This is just sort of to drive the point home that forget the backticks. You might see them, you'll see them in scripts. You don't need them. You can use this notation. It is so much easier for command substitution. This is what this notation is called, command substitution. You put a command in here and Bash will substitute it for the standard output of the command. That is what's happening there. So of course, the beautiful thing about this, let's go ahead and trash this whole file, is we can make our own little mini program. Do you remember how to make a mini program? It's a function. We can make our own little function here where our function just echoes hi. That's all it does. Now we can say thing equals myfunc. We call it just like any other program on the system, and now thing will be defined to that. So we can say thing is $thing, and when we run this, what do you think we're gonna get? There's no trickery here. We get thing is hi. Perfect. That's exactly what we expected to get. We are just running this function inside command substitution. Now there is something to be aware of here, and this is really important. In this notation of command substitution, this will run in a subshell. This will run in a different environment than your main program. So let me show you, let me illustrate what I mean by that. Let's make a global variable here called I, and let's set it equal to 5. Okay, right at the top of our script, I is set to 5. Inside my function, let's have some side effects here. Let's not only print hi, but let's also modify I to be 6. Okay, so we have thing is thing here. So now below this, let's go ahead and echo I is $I. Now what do you think it's going to be? Do you think it's going to be 5 or do you think it's going to be 6 if we run this? Let's go ahead, I'll pull the source code up so you can cross-reference it and take a look at that. I is 5. Even though this function ran and this function set I equal to 6, this is dropped because of this notation. When you see these parens like this, there's a good chance it's going to be running in a subshell and this will be dropped. So I was set to 6 for the duration of this function, but it was dropped at the end of this. Once this line is done, I is equal to 5 here. It was never equal to 6 in this parent shell. So this is something to keep in mind. Functions by default can modify the global scope. So if I just ran that function without capturing its output, say I didn't do this, I just ran myfunc here. I didn't capture its output, I just ran myfunc and then ran it. Take a look at this. I'll pull the source code up, we'll run it, what do I call it, command substitution. Now we have I equals 6. So functions can modify the global scope. This is why I tell you to use the local keyword in your functions. You can avoid this. But if you use command substitution, it can't modify that global scope. There is an alternative syntax for command substitution. So let's go ahead and revert this back to what we had here, which was, what do we have? Thing equals myfunc, echo thing is $thing. Now there is a new syntax. So this is what we had before. I didn't change anything yet. So we get I equals 5. I was not modified. This new syntax I'm talking about was introduced in Bash 5.3. I have a video where I talk about these new changes. When I say new, I mean this patch came out sometime in 2025. So whenever you're watching this, that could be a long time ago, or that could still be relatively new. So it's so new that my Vim highlighter won't even like this. It will yell at me. But if I change this to a curly brace, I put a space here. The space is very important. Look how Vim is really upset with me. And then I change this final thing to a semicolon, close the curly brace. So Sorry, Vim is yelling at me. It doesn't like this, but this is valid bash syntax if you're on 5.3 or higher. You can run my func like this as long as we have that semicolon there. I usually put the semicolon there and put a space here. I don't know if that space is necessary at the end, but the space is necessary at the beginning. So we can run this, and let's go ahead and see what happens when we run this syntax, because this syntax is not, look, even bat doesn't like syntax highlighting. It's very confused. We run this, thing is high, I is 6. So we still capture the standard out of my func, but it didn't run in its own subshell. It ran in the main shell. This is useful, but it can have side effects. If you want your functions to have side effects, like being able to modify global scope, this syntax is great. If you want your functions to be fast, this syntax is great. When you use the parentheses, it is slower because you have to create a subshell, but you get the benefit of not being able to modify any sort of global scope.